Hello, I'm Bart Walsh. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I've been doing psychotherapy for the past 37 years, and this sequence is called Care of the Self. And we're going to address chronic emotional states in this, the next number of segments, and realize that many of us experience anxiety or depression in a chronic fashion. And there don't really need to be circumstances causing the anxiety or depression. It just is happening all the time. And it may be happening at a low level constantly. It may be a pretty significant level. But this chronic state is quite a burden to bear. So we're going to look at how to manage or resolve the chronic condition. Realize that there are typically three sources of chronic emotional states. Now, the chronic emotional state, anxiety and depression, are the most common. But there are other states that some people experience as well, and sometimes rage is the state. And, well, we're going to focus on anxiety and depression and realize that you can apply the same methods to other states as they come up, and apply the same methods to a lot of chronic physical conditions. But let's consider the three common sources. Now, one source really involves genes. We're genetically inclined to be anxious or depressed. And we can typically find folks in our heritage. We can find parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles that have experienced the same thing. It just gets passed down generation to generation. Or we may be genetically activated for depression or anxiety when it didn't originally run in the family. Either way, it's a genetic driver that I call a force. Force is a term that the unconscious seems to understand, recognize, and associate with genes. So, this is one source. Honestly, I have a genetic inclination for both anxiety and depression. Anxiety force and a depressive force. So I know about those well. So a second source involves experience from the past that has not been fully resolved or, monitored, regulated. Something from the past is activating anxiety or depression in the present. And our present experience regularly triggers that anxiety or depression. So it may be a single event, it may be a series of events. For some folks I've worked with, it's years of ongoing events. For others, it's just one event from the past. So it varies from person to person, but something from the past has not been addressed sufficiently or resolved effectively, and it triggers anxiety or depression in the present. Okay, a third source of chronic anxiety or depression is a belief. And the belief may be carried by a single part of us. The belief may not even be recognized at conscious awareness. But a belief is a very powerful thing, because a belief residing in our inner reality needs to make outer reality conform to it. We don't want to have two different realities, so that inner reality will do what it can to make sure that there's some consistency between inner reality and outer reality. So a single belief can often be responsible for behaviors and perceptions and emotions and thought process, cognition. It can be responsible for lots and lots of things. So these three conditions can activate or maintain chronic anxiety or depression. Now, some of us have just one of these sources. Some of us have all three of these sources. Now, there is a fourth source I need to address, which involves parts of us that are employing one of those three other sources to maintain chronic anxiety or depression. And we'll be talking a lot more about that, because essentially we all have a large community of parts within us that are doing all sorts of things for us, and quite a help, quite a benefit. But sometimes parts become isolated, separated from the rest of the system, and they get very frustrated, and they create problems in order to get attention, hoping that someone will get them out of isolation. This is another segment that we will be, addressing. But isolated parts that are separated from the rest of the system, can cause problems, and they can be sort of a fourth source of chronic anxiety or depression. In our next segment, I'll be addressing events from the past as a source of chronic anxiety or depression, and how to resolve that source so that it's just not happening. So I hope that you can tune in, and I thank you for watching, and realize that you can get this information in the Care of the Self Owner's Manual book. See you next time.